Hey everybody, welcome back to round 23 of Inside the Clinch. My name is Eric, and as always, I'm joined by my longtime friend Johnny. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. We heard you got the COVID vaccine this week. How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. Yesterday, my arm was a little sore. I felt a little tired towards like the evening time. But today I'm feeling a lot better. My arm is still a little sore, but feeling okay. No complaints thus far.
You look good, you sound good. So hopefully vaccine works. You'll be okay in a couple of weeks to enjoy your freedom again.
Yeah, I believe in 4 weeks is my second dose. I got Moderna, so they say the second dose is the one that really affects you. So ask me how I'm doing after that. But as of right now, I'm feeling all right.
Guys, if you notice Johnny missing in a couple of weeks from Inside the Clinch, we all know why. So
Yeah.
all
Well,
those
I hope.
anti-vaxxers take your notes.
Well, I hope not, dude. I'm like actually super nervous for the second shot. So
Nah, you
I was
look
nervous
good.
for
You're a healthy
I
guy.
was
I
n-
think you'll be
I
good.
was nervous for the first one, so I don't even know how nervous I'm gonna be for the second one. So we'll see what happens.
All right, on to the more positive news. We have a weekend full of stacked events. We had Bellator, we had the PFL, and most excitingly, we had UFC 261 this past weekend. My God, was that an amazing event from start to bottom?
Yeah, the entire was just surprises from the early prelims. Every fight like that, the early prelims there are a lot of Asian fighters and a lot of they were favored to win. And from the early prelims, every underdog was winning the fights. So it was a nice full surprise, like I said. And with the fans back, the event was definitely a lot more exciting.
Yeah, from like I mean, even from the beginning, the first two fights easily could have been fight of the night contenders. I believe the second fight of the event, I believe, did win actually the fight of the night. The early prelims, the prelims, everything was stacked. I mean, the entire event, I was just like, holy shit, this card is amazing. I don't think they've ever put an event that was this exciting from start to finish. You know, usually you have a couple of those snoozer fights in between, but from start to finish, this card was sick.
Yeah, everybody, the fans are back, and I feel like the fighters just wanted to put on a show because they knew that everybody, not only were people at home watching, but there were 15,000 people in the arena for the first time in over a year. So the fans were pumped, and the event was just insane from the first fight to the last.
Yeah, it was electrifying vibes from the fans. We heard them screaming and cheering, and everybody just off the edge of their seats from, like we said, from start to finish. Um,
Yeah,
but
it was an insane sight to see. Like there was so many fans. Like there are no missed seats. Everybody. I mean, most people weren't in masks, so Florida is just like they do their own thing, and thus far, I don't hear of any negative consequences from the event. So I'm excited
people should
for
take notes.
I'm excited for to see more events with the fans.
Absolutely. They already announced an event in Texas. I think their next event that they're going to have tickets on sale for will be in Arizona. So UFC is slowly getting the show back on the road.
Yeah, it's not just the UFC. We have Bellator, we have PFL. I feel like I don't remember a time when we had so much MMA. It's like there's always MMA to watch. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. Well, the PFL has grown, so that's definitely getting a lot more media attention. We've had the last few events of one championship on TNT, so that's bringing American fans something else to watch. So yeah, it's a great time to be an MMA fan, brother.
Dude, the PFL looks really nice. Like I love how they tell you how many punches, kicks each fighter landed, and they tell you like the speed of the punches, which I feel like is really cool. I don't know why the UFC doesn't like incorporate something like that into their promotion.
Yeah, one thing I actually love about the PFL is the body cams that the referees wear. I think that's a sick idea, and I don't understand why more organizations don't do that. The referee, it's not really obstructing him that much. It's a very light, it's like a GoPro. It's only a pound, maybe.
I don't think it really obstructs him or her at all.
Yeah, so I don't see why more organizations don't do it. It's a sick feature to have. Imagine all these replays. Imagine watching Masvidal get knocked out from the referee's point of view. I mean, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, or like Ben Askren,
Or Ben Askren.
or like Conor McGregor.
Any of
Yeah,
them, man.
yeah, for sure.
So we'll touch on PFL. We'll touch on PFL in a minute, but let's get into the UFC 261 main event. Was an amazing, amazing card. The main event started off with two jaw-dropping fights, though. First, we had Anthony Smith taking on Jimmy Crute. These two veterans were going at it. We saw Anthony Smith make a lot of use of the jab. He was keeping Jimmy Crute at a distance. Jimmy Crute, was trying to utilize the leg kicks. He was trying to get around the jabs of Anthony Smith. And unfortunately, it looked like he got, I believe it's called dead leg in the first round. So his ankle just started rolling. And, when I saw that on TV, my reaction was, holy shit, what the hell is that? I mean, it just looked like his leg snapped. His instinct and reaction was go for the takedown, which was an amazing, amazing idea. And not only did he
every single time he wanted to get a takedown, he got it. So it was like really easy for him.
Yeah, so he got the first takedown immediately after hurting his foot, and then he got a second one right after. So 2 back-to-back takedowns with a foot that was gone. I mean, and he was wrestling off of that foot, and you can see him putting weight on it, putting pressure. And then in between the first and second round, he was going back to his corner. He just kept stumbling over and falling, and it was really painful to watch. I was like closing my eyes half the time. It was just hard to watch. Jimmy Crute is a solid guy. He tried to get back in. He tried to continue, but the doctors wouldn't let him, unfortunately.
Yeah, the willpower on that guy is insane. Like, if I saw my leg like that, I'll be like, I'm good. I'll fight another day. But he was like, he wanted to fight. It was literally insane. But Anthony Smith did a great job. As you said, his jab was beautiful. He landed his jab anytime he wanted to. I feel like if the fight went on a little bit longer, like, would have been able to utilize his wrestling a little bit more. I feel like he didn't have the opportunity to do so yet. But once his leg was damaged, he had no choice, and the takedown was just automatic for him. So I feel like if that didn't happen, I feel like it would have been a totally different night. But Anthony Smith did look really good, so not to take anything away from him, but I still have high hopes for Crute.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Crute will be back. I think he displayed his toughness out there, his heart, and the true characteristics of a warrior. I mean, the guy, I just can't appreciate enough how much he wanted to continue, even though he physically couldn't stand. He even came over to Anthony Smith and picked him up while having basically only one foot. The guy is just amazing. I really hope he heals quick and heals well so we can see him back soon. And I think they should run this back at some point because this was only one round of action. It was really exciting first round, but unfortunately ended too soon.
Yeah, so what I believe the injury is called exactly is common peroneal nerve palsy. Uh, Joe Rogan was saying like it's nerve damage, which looks like he was correct. But yeah, Jimmy Crute, freaking tough guy. And like I said, I can't wait to see him back in the octagon.
So if that wasn't bad enough, the next fight was even worse. Chris Weidman broke his leg against Uriah Hall. A devastating injury. We actually saw something very, very similar against Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva. Literally
the same. Yeah, it was literally the same. It was literally the same kick, the same part where the kick landed, and the injury was almost identical. It's insane.
Yeah, I think the main difference was in the Anderson Silva and Weidman fight, at least there was a little bit of the fight going on. There were some kicks landed. In this fight with Weidman and Uriah Hall, this was the very first kick that Weidman threw. The very first kick landed right underneath the knee, and the leg just snapped. And you see Chris, take a step back and try to put weight on it. And if you look at the slow-mo camera, you just see his face change as he's putting the weight down on that foot, and he just falls in devastating pain. I mean, it was brutal to watch, to say the least.
Yeah, listen, dude, it was insane to watch, and to see Chris Weidman go down like that. We know how many injuries he had to overcome thus far, and how hard his journey has been since losing his title. And like all UFC, all that aside, it's hard to watch someone go through that. And Chris Weidman, we've been following him for a very long time, been big supporters of him. So to see him go down like that, it sucks,
It's rough. Yeah. I was watching the post-fight press conference, and when Anthony Smith was talking, that's when Weidman was up, and he heard the screaming from the fans, and he asked what happened, and the media guys told him, and he was just disappointed as well because he said he was training with Weidman partially for this camp, and he said with the way that Weidman trains, he doesn't know how Weidman has ever taken a loss. I mean, the guy has serious work ethic. He's the All-American. He has what it takes to be a champion. We've seen him defeat some of the legends in the sport. So all I can say is I hope that Chris heals up well. That's a very, very bad injury. He did have surgery. He did seem like he came out okay, but we hope that he recovers well and gets back soon.
Yeah, it's a really bad injury. We don't know how he's going to come back, but Anderson Silva did come back and did fight 7 more times, I believe, after that. So
he was not the same though.
He was not the same, but there was other factors to it. He was also older. I don't really want to see Chris Weidman back anymore, but that's like his own personal choice. I just don't want to see him like go through like something like that again. You know, he already did so much in the sport. But let's just talk about that kick alone. You know, like I felt that kick, like if you like watch that kick in slow motion, it's like he threw it kind of awkwardly, I thought. What did you think of the kick itself?
I don't know. It happened really fast. I feel
He just used all his force, like his entire body into that kick. And it was the first kick of the fight, which is absolutely insane.
I feel like he wanted to make a statement with that leg kick. He probably wanted to, set the precedent, because that's how what we see in modern MMA fights. A lot of strikers, the tool to pick them apart, you got to start with the legs. You got to slow them down so that they can't put the power in the legs, so they can't move and they won't be able to strike as well. I think Chris Weidman, having the high fight IQ that he has, he probably was trying to start slowing down Uriah Hall as soon as the fight began. Probably try to kick his legs and, not just a tap to the legs. He wanted to make a real statement and make sure it stung. Unfortunately, I think it landed in the absolute worst spot it possibly could. And I mean, we saw what happened. Derek Lewis even came out and said that he's never throwing a leg kick again.
It's scary, dude. It's so scary to think of. From what I've been hearing is that these professional fighters, they say that every single time they throw a leg kick, it hurts them regardless of whether it's landed correctly or not. So an injury like that it's devastating,
Shevchenko also said that she doesn't like to use leg kicks just because of, accidents like this are possible. And, she has pretty much every tool you can have in your arsenal. And she still says that leg kicks are one of her least favorite just because of the risks involved in hurting yourself while you're throwing the kick.
Yeah, I think throwing a low leg kick is definitely a lot more dangerous as opposed to like kicking someone in the face, because like the shin, and there's certain parts of the shin that's more dense than others. So what happened was the most fragile part of Chris's leg hit the most dense part of Uriah Hall's leg, and that's exactly what happened. His leg just shattered.
So two brutal injuries to start off UFC 261, the main event. Man, I just hope the two guys recover well, and we hope to see them back.
Yeah, Jimmy Crute looks like he was okay following the fight. Chris Weidman, as you said, had his surgery. Looks like he's in good spirits. Dana White flew him and his family back out on a private jet back to North Carolina, I believe, right? So he's back home now, and he's recovering. So we wish him the best.
Yeah, I believe it could be up to 12 months until he can start training again. And at that point, I think, he should take into consideration, I guess, how well the injury healed and where he is physically and mentally in his career. Because, this is the latter half of his career. He did have an amazing championship legacy, but I don't know. It's a more advanced game now. If you're stepping away at this point in your career, a year can change a lot. A lot can happen. The game can evolve in a year. And if you're not evolving with the sport, you can just be left behind.
He's been through so much already. Just he's been that leg kick and then that knee from Yoel Romero and then that KO knockout by Dominick Reyes. And there's so much more, So he should like really consider whether he wants to continue fighting. I don't want to sound like a dickhead, but like, everyone sees it. He's obviously not the same fighter. So it's sad that we couldn't see him. Maybe he changed as a fighter, and we just weren't able to see that because it was just so early in the fight. Yeah. So we spoke about Chris. What about his opponent, Uriah Hall? Obviously, nobody wants to win like that, but Uriah Hall, whether you like it or not, he's on a 4-fight winning streak now. The fight with Chris Weidman counts. I know he probably doesn't want to win like that, but a win is a win. And Uriah Hall is currently on a 4-fight winning streak. So what's next for him?
Firstly, I just want to say Uriah Hall handled everything like a gentleman. I just want to say he's a definition of what a real mixed martial artist is, what a real sportsman is. So kudos to him, and Uriah Hall, congratulations. We hope to continue to see you do well. As far as what's next, all right, let's take a look at the situation in the middleweight division right now. I think Uriah Hall has earned himself a match against, I think Jack Hermanson is available. I think that would be a good matchup for him. And Jared Cannonier is someone we haven't seen fight since the loss to Robert Whitaker. I know he had a bad injury. He broke a bone on his arm clean. It looked pretty bad as well. So assuming Cannonier is injured up, I think Cannonier versus Uriah Hall would be a great fight. One more win after that fight, they could possibly have a title fight.
Yeah, Uriah Hall has been looking great.
Uriah Hall's ranked number 8 right now, and Cannonier number 4. So, ranking wise, it might be the fight that makes the most sense.
Yeah, putting Uriah Hall against most people in the top five, even putting him up against like Israel Adesanya, I feel like that'd be a great fight because they're both predominantly strikers, and I feel like that'll be a great chess match.
Absolutely. I do think Adesanya's IQ is a little bit higher than Uriah Hall's though, but I agree with what you said. Anyway, you mix those four guys, I feel like it would be an interesting striking match. All right, so the next fight after that was Valentina Shevchenko defending her flyweight belt against Jessica Andrade. Man, Valentina, the bullet, she does not disappoint. What'd you think of her performance?
Dude, like people were doubting her wrestling, so what did she do? She went out and she wrestled the entire time. And the entire time, she took out Andrade any single time she wanted to, and she was upset that people thought that Andrade would be superior in the wrestling, but obviously wasn't the case. It was a beautiful performance by the Bullet.
Yeah, I mean, she likes, especially over her last few fights, she likes to take the fights to where she knows her opponents are best. Everyone assumed Valentina would be the better striker against Jessica Andrade. So what does Valentina do? She goes out and wrestles her. There was the only split second of oops, maybe Andrade is going to get something. Is that moment against the cage where she tried to lift Valentina. Valentina said nope, ended up throwing her instead, mounted a crucifix, and just fucked her up. I mean, Jessica Andrade, it just looked like she didn't belong in there. I love the girl. She's very tough, and she is a very strong contender and one of the top of the female flyweights. But Valentina Shevchenko is just different level from the rest of the division, man.
Yeah, Jessica Andrade is definitely a tough female. She gave Rose Namajunas, the current champion, a hard time. She defeated Rose the first time, knocked her out with slam. Um, but Shevchenko is just like on a different level. And I don't even know who I want to see her fight next. Like, I don't want to see her fight anybody that she has fought in the past like 4 or 5 fights. And I feel like there's no one else in the division for her to really compete against.
Yeah, so a lot of the speculation now is, hey, do we want to see her fight Nunez again? Because no one else really makes sense. There is no one on her level, and both.
What about like a Rose? I seen them taking pictures with each other and like smiling and exchanging words with one another after the fight. But I feel like what else
I
is
mean,
there
does
to make like
Valentina want to drop another 10 pounds? We've seen her fight in flyweight and we've seen her fight at bantamweight, but can she cut down to strawweight? Does she want to cut
she's
down to strawweight?
she's gonna destroy Rose
I
if
mean,
she
look at how
fights
big
her.
Valentina was compared to Jessica Andrade. You know what I mean? Like Valentina's a pretty big flyweight, and I mean, maybe she could shed the extra 10 pounds, but it's going to be putting a lot more strain. And who's other than Rose and Wei Lee, who's really in that weight division that can pose a challenge to Valentina?
What woman is in the division that she's in that's like a
No, the only female I think that poses a threat to Shevchenko is Nunez. Valentina says, hey, she's open to that fight sometime in the future, but she's not rushing that fight now. She said if the UFC comes to her and says, hey, this is the fight we think that makes the most sense, if there's no one else and this is the fight to make, Valentina is more than open to it. But she doesn't sound like she's rushing into that fight. But for both of the girls, I don't see anyone else in their league. I mean, they're literally in a league of their own.
yeah, she says that if that's the fight, that she feels like that fight is gonna happen eventually. It's just like destined to happen for the time. I know this is like a little topic, but I feel like Valentina did win one of those fights, so I do regard her as the best of all time, and she showed us once again why she is that this weekend.
So for the co-main event of the evening, we had Zhang Wei Lee losing her belt against Rose Namajunas. Round one, 1 minute, 18 seconds in, Rose landed a beautiful kick, dropped Wei Lee, and she landed a few more punches, and the ref stepped in and said that's a wrap. That was an amazing performance. I think this was, in my opinion, the biggest shocker of the evening. I was rooting for Zhang Wei Li in this fight. Either way, I would not have been upset, but just the way that it happened was insane. One thing that Daniel Cormier pointed out on his show earlier this week, we see that Rose started off with some leg kicks, and if you look at Zhang Wei Li's reaction right before she gets kicked, it looks like she's doing like a step away so she doesn't get her legs kicked, leaving her hands out. And that's when Rose landed that kick inside of her guard. Man, was that an amazing kick.
I'm so impressed with Rose. Like people doubt her, man. People doubted her in the Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight. What did she do? She shocked the world. People doubting her in this fight. She was a pretty big underdog in this fight. I kind of thought I'm not gonna say here that I thought she was gonna win. Wei Li Zhang is a beast, but I did think that Rose had a good chance because we saw the fight with Wei Li Zhang and Joanna Jędrzejczyk was a very close fight. A lot of people think that Joanna won. We saw what happened when Rose Namajunas fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So it's all about matchups, and I feel like it was a bad matchup for Wei Li Zhang that on Saturday night.
Do you think it was a bad matchup? Because I guess my question really is: do you want to see them run it back? Do you think Wei Lee deserves a rematch?
I want to see them run it back because like we didn't really see what Wei Li had to offer. Like the fight was so short. She got caught. Like she hasn't lost in a very long time. She forgot what it feels like to lose. So let's see if this sparks anything. But I do believe that this is the fight to make.
Yeah, Wei Lee started off moving great. Unfortunately, she just got caught. It was the great setup by Rose. Shout out to Trevor Whitman. He put in work with his athletes this weekend.
Yeah, Rose is just phenomenal, and like I said, like she has some amazing moments in the UFC. Just like after the fight, Joe Rogan says to her, "Before the fight, you were telling yourself that I'm the best," and she goes like, "I am the best." That was such a cute. That was such a cute moment.
Yeah,
she's like, it's like I don't know, like I have no relationship with her, but like I'm so proud of her. It's insane what she has done in the sport.
Yeah, she's a really likable person, and one thing everyone says, she puts everything out there. So it's not like someone that's putting on a front just to the cameras or anything. What you see is what you get with Rose. So very happy for her. She is the first female to win back a title that she has lost. So it's a huge accomplishment for her. I would love to see this rematch. I don't know how it goes. Hopefully we get a longer fight, but holy shit, Doug Rose.
Yeah, I feel like there's Wei Li could do a lot to have a different outcome in the second fight, but sign me up for the rematch, man.
John, the main event of the evening for UFC 261. Holy shit, another jaw dropper. Kamaru Usman knocks out Jorge Masvidal 1 minute into the second round. Holy shit, what was your reaction?
What the hell saw that coming, man? Like everyone thought that Usman was gonna win, but people thought that he was gonna win utilizing his wrestling, utilizing his grappling. Who saw that punch? Who saw that KO knockout? It's just insane the way that Usman has developed as a fighter. He's not predominantly a wrestler anymore. He's a complete fighter now. And now we know the answer who the better fighter is between Jorge Masvidal and Usman. I feel like we knew this whole time, but Jorge Masvidal did do a great job in selling this fight, selling himself. But Kamaru Usman is just on a different level, man.
Yeah, holy shit. I mean, the work he's been doing with Trevor Whitman, you can see how much his striking has evolved. Like you said, he started off as predominantly a wrestler, and he was one of those guys in the division prior to being a champion where he couldn't get fights just because he was so good and hard to beat, but he didn't really have a name. So a lot of fighters didn't want to put their streak on the line to fight someone that wasn't really a draw. Once Kamaru Usman became a champ, though, he's been drawing fights from all the top guys. I mean, he has not been in a boring fight since. His striking has gotten insane. We've seen him break Kobe Covington's jaw. We've seen him drop Gilbert Burns. I mean, his power, his striking is just getting so much better. I did expect a closer fight. Like I said, I thought with more time to prepare, I thought Masvidal was going to have a closer fight. But unfortunately, it looks like Usman had the better changes in the game plan. And you can see just the way he punched Masvidal. He punched and pretty much stepped all the way over to take him down if that strike missed. I mean, it was just the movement, the placement of that punch, the timing was everything about it was perfect. Holy shit.
Yeah, and the punches landed afterwards super necessary.
Super necessary.
According to Usman. Yeah, Masvidal had a lot to say before the fight. I feel like most versed UFC fans knew the difference in fighters between these two fighters, but Jorge Masvidal, as I said, he knows how to talk. He knows how to promote the fight, and I thought, as you did, I thought that Jorge Masvidal would be able to put on more. Jorge Masvidal would be able to put on more of a competitive fight, but that wasn't the case at all. In the last fight, I think that Jorge Masvidal did okay in the first round, but there's no reason to make a rematch with this anymore. Usman is clearly the better fighter, and yeah, I feel like the next fight to make is Kobe Covington.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think my biggest problem with watching this fight, Masvidal clearly didn't respect Usman's power. His hands were down a lot of the fight, and when he got hit, he kind of just stuck his head out even more instead of covering up and defending and move his head.
I feel like Masvidal always fights like that, though. I feel like he always fights with hands down.
Yeah, but if you watch some of it, like even the first fight with Usman, the way he picks up his hands, he kind of has the punches roll off of him, or it kind of just slides off him, doesn't really hurt him. This fight, as much as he tried to smile it off, those punches that Usman was hitting him in the first round, they were doing damage. And I think that
Yeah,
lack of respect is what ended up costing him the night.
it's insane to say that Usman has no power. We saw what happens in the Burns fight. We saw what happened in the Colby fight, and now we see what happened in this fight. He obviously has that knockout power. That punch was just beautifully placed at the perfect place, perfect time, and you can just see when he punches him, all the water, like the water, just splashing out his face. If had a beautiful picture that they posted on their Instagram with that, but man, Usman made a huge statement. I feel like on Saturday night.
So I agree. Kobe is the next fight to make in the division. He's a top contender. I'm not very happy about the fact that he's been sitting out. I usually don't. I'm one of the guys that thinks that only active fighters should be getting title shots. You shouldn't really be sitting out and getting a title shot. But Kobe being who he is in the division, making the noise that he's done, I feel like I'm okay with this one.
Yeah, look, about Kobe. Look, he fought Usman and then he broke his jaw. That takes a very long time to recover from. Like he was able
He's
to
been
open his mouth for
recovered
a
long
long.
enough to get another fight, though. It's been a few months. He could have
Yeah,
had
but
some
then
kind of
there's
fight.
also the case of like he just fought the champion. Who is he gonna fight? Like he obviously wants a rematch with Usman, and say he fights someone else, and there's always a possibility of him losing. So if he loses, then he's not gonna. And it's a whole thing. You know how it is.
So let me ask you one thing. Conor McGregor goes out on social media and says that Usman is taking his moves and how he's going to come for that 170-pound belt and all this nonsense. What do you make of all this?
Exactly what you said. Nonsense. Like if the two were to fight, which I don't believe will ever happen because Conor McGregor is not that retarded. Kamaru Usman will literally smash this guy. He will mold this guy in the Dagestani lingo. But yeah, Conor McGregor has no business being in the octagon with Kamaru Usman. He has no business being in the octagon with some people in his own division. What makes him think that he could go up in weight division and fight a guy that hasn't been beaten in years?
Yeah, I mean, you said it right. I don't know where Conor thinks he can beat Usman. Usman has the much better
Just
power. He has the
he's just
wrestling.
chirping. He's
Yeah,
just chirping.
yeah, I mean it's crazy. I think Connor's just trying to make some noise. Like you said, if Connor knows what's good for him, if Dana knows what's good for Connor, no one's signing that fight. No green panty night for Usman. I don't think that fight should happen. I think Connor would just get
I,
destroyed.
I
And
feel like
legacy.
Connor is just I feel like Connor is just trying to stay relevant because like obviously the fights are not going his way as of late. So he's been mouthing off to a lot of people via Twitter, via social media. Um, until Connor is able to back it up as he used to, his words don't really mean anything to me anymore because like we saw this act with Connor. But before he was at least winning. Now it's just like you're losing, so just shut up until you win. You know what I mean?
Completely agree with you there. All right, that was UFC 261, guys. Stacked event. Again, one of the best cards of all time, I think, that the UFC's put together thus far.
Do you think it was the best card of all time, or do you think it was just the fact that we didn't have fights for so long? The fans were back. People were just so excited to be there. I think that played a role because we see cards with more talented fighters.
For me personally, I don't know about on paper if it was the best card, but I can't remember an event where I was excited from the very early prelim fight, the very first fight of the night to the very end. Like I said, usually there's some snoozers in between. This fight card was just amazing from start to finish. Maybe one fight wasn't super exciting, but I was excited through the entire card. I mean, so many jaw droppers, so many shocking moments, injuries, like underdogs winning. It was really really exciting. Um, to me, I don't even know if the fans made it as big of a deal because when I watched it on Saturday night, I was with some people, so I didn't have the volume. I had to rewatch it on Sunday, so it did make a little bit of a difference. But regardless, I was excited. So I would say the way it played out, in my opinion, yeah, this is their best card to date.
Yeah. So I was watching this card like literally by myself, and I was like glued to my computer screen the entire time. So it was just as you said, from beginning to end, exciting, jaw dropping. Any other synonym you want to put in there? It was just an insane card. Yeah. So before we move on to the UFC this weekend, we had PFL this week. Anthony Pettis took on Clay Collard and wasn't able to get the job done. His debut in PFL didn't go his way. It was sad to see, but Clay Collard put on a magnificent performance.
Yeah, kudos to Clay Collard. He went into this fight as a big underdog. A lot of people didn't know who he was, especially compared to the guy across from the ring, Anthony Pettis, who was a UFC champion. He was in Bellator, I believe. He was in Strikeforce. I mean, the guy has the resume that any MMA fighter could ask for. Anthony Pettis was coming in as a huge favorite, but he wasn't able to perform. We saw in the third round he was starting to pick it up a little bit, but it wasn't enough to get the job done. The first 2 rounds, he got dropped several times. He got taken down, and he was eating some big shots, and that fight almost got stopped prior to going to decision.
Yeah, I feel like the UFC is just like been on a losing streak with Page going into bare knuckle and losing, and then we have this fight. And we also had Ben Askren taking on Jake Paul, which didn't go his way. So the UFC's been on a losing streak as of late, and it's not really fun to watch.
Speaking of streaks, you know what I just realized? Uncle Chael finally broke his streak. So there was for all the main events that he was predicting for 2021, every single one of those guys have lost. So there's been a Chael curse going down. And this past weekend, he was predicting Usman to win. So he surprisingly broke his curse. I mean, I guess not surprising. We all expected Usman to win, but I mean,
not the guy that placed like $50,000 on Masvidal to win.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, he looked Masvidal in the face too and said, "Tell me you're gonna win." And I don't know, by Masvidal's answer, it didn't sound too confident at the press conference.
Oh, was it that guy that placed that bet?
I believe so. I wouldn't. I know he placed a big bet. I don't know how much it was.
Oh yeah, I mean Masvidal's answer, and also Masvidal. When Usman came into the octagon, he like got into Masvidal's face. I feel like the old Masvidal would have been more defensive or like would have been more aggressive. Masvidal just took it, and I feel like that just set like a weak tone for the fight.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with you there. So guys, before we move on to this upcoming UFC card, we just wanted to remind you again, if you have not already, use code word clinch at killcliff.com. They have a line of different CBD drinks, energy drinks, and recovery drinks. They have some cool merch as well. Joe Rogan has collaborated with them to make a CBD drink called Flaming Joe. A lot of cool stuff on there. Code word clinch will get you 10% off. So go check it out. Let us know what you think, guys. So John, this weekend we have UFC Fight Night, Reyes versus Prochazka. Really exciting fight. It's going to be the first time we're seeing Reyes come back after losing in a big way against the champion Jan Blachowicz. But let's start from the beginning of the main event. We have Poliana Botello taking on Luana Carolina. Next up, we have Merab Dvalishvili taking on Cody Stamann. This fight I'm very, very excited for. Merab is training out in Longo with some of the guys that we actually had the pleasure of interviewing, like Nassim. So he's training out there with Aljo, formerly training with Chris Weidman. He's in there training with the studs. Cody Stamann is another guy. I mean, the kid's been looking great. He's had a bumpy last couple of fights. We know he's had even some family issues. He lost his younger brother a year or two ago. So just seeing what this guy is going through and, just seeing how he still performs is great. This, I think, is definitely has the potential to be fight of the night contender. I think this is going to be just a full brawl between the two guys. Merab is all about the volume. He's all about the power. He mixes it up very well. And Cody Stamann, he's very explosive as well. So I don't know. This is going to be an exciting fight. Who do you got on this one?
I think Cody Stamann is a tough kid. But when it comes to Merab is just, he has like that Georgian strength, that power. And I feel like he's just going to be able to utilize his wrestling and take the fight to where he's most comfortable whenever he wants to. I feel like there's going to be a big discrepancy in wrestling IQ. I feel like there's going to be a big discrepancy in just fight IQ in general, in power, in strength. And I feel like Merab is just going to get the job done.
Yeah, I think Merab should have the tools to get it done. He's another one that has had an interesting past in the UFC. He started off great, but he had a few very controversial decision losses. I was actually in attendance for one of his fights where he was holding out a choke for over a minute. He held it out to the end of the fight, and for some reason, the referee called it a TKO. I think that was a robbery. The man held the submission. He did not tap. He did not go out. I think that was a robbery. Ever since then, I was just a huge Merab fan. And, he has been on the bad end of a few decisions. I mean, the guy has a lot of potential. He's working with some savages out in Long Island, like I mentioned. So I think if he cleans up a few more tools in his arsenal, I do definitely think he's going to be a strong contender in this division.
Listen, man, Marab is a beast, and from the people that we've talked to with Nazim and your boy Dennis Bazooka, and some other people from the Longo and Weidman gym, what they have to say about Marab is that he's the hardest worker in the room. So I feel like that's going to pay off, and he's going to go far in division. I feel like Stamen, tough kid. Feel really bad for him for what he's been through, but I feel like Marab is just, as I said, just on a different level.
Yeah, and when I heard this matchup get announced, I was really excited for it, but at the same time, I was kind of shaking my head like, damn, Cody Stamen. Like, I wish they gave him someone else just because, like I said, his last couple of fights, he's kind of been one up, one down, and I feel like he kind of needs to get a couple of wins just to get his ball rolling again. When I saw that he was announced against Marab, I'm like, I don't think he can beat him.
Yeah, they should have made him beat up Sean O'Malley.
So you think the winner of this fight should get Sean O'Malley?
I, I mean that would make sense, but I feel like the UFC is just protecting Sean O'Malley. They're not going to give him a rob until it's like there's no other way for them to go.
Yeah, it's possible. I think personally, O'Malley is a little bit too big for Marab. Marab, he's typical wrestler frame. He's a little bit shorter and stockier, whereas O'Malley's very long and lengthy. So there is going to be a big size discrepancy, but I think it's going to be a classic wrestler versus striker matchup if that were to play out.
Yeah, and his wrestling is just so good. And O'Malley is predominantly a striker. I know he's practiced a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all that, but I feel like Marab is just he's low. He's closer to the ground, and I feel like because of that, it's going to be easier for him to wrestle. O'Malley is taller. He's lanky, so I just don't see how O'Malley would be able to win unless he just knocks him out.
Next on the card, we have Sean Strickland taking on Christoph Jodko. This is another fight that I think is going to be a brawl. I don't think this one is going to go to decision. Who do you have on this one, John?
I don't know, man. Two very tough fighters. Sean Strickland is 22-3. Jotko, I don't know how to really pronounce his first name. Christoph, how do you pronounce
Christoph?
Christoph Jotko, 22-4. I believe they're both on pretty long winning streaks. Don't quote me on that, but tough fight for both fighters. And as you said, it has potential to be one of the best fights on the card.
One thing I want to say, Sean Strickland, what I noticed in his last fight, he did show a lot of toughness, a lot of heart, and a lot of power. But one thing I didn't really like is his lack of movement. I feel like he kept getting hit only because he kept his head in the center for too long. I feel like some basic head movement and just movement overall would have helped him avoid some of the shots. He took some big shots and didn't even seem fazed by them. But look, if it only takes one punch realistically to land properly and lights out, I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? So these are not risks that he can continue to take as he's climbing the ranks. So I do hope to see that he polished those holes up a little bit. Yeah, Christoph is another solid contender. We do see a lot of his fights. He has 22 wins, 15 of which go to decision. So we do know he has the conditioning to take it to the end. I did see Sean Strickland kind of slow down by the third round of his last fight. So I think if this goes into the latter rounds, Christoph might be able to pull off a win. But I'm not sure who I have in this one. This is going to be exciting. I definitely expect fireworks in this fight as well. Next up, we have Ian Cutelaba going up against Dustin Jacoby. Ian Cutelaba coming off of a couple of losses. We saw what Magomed Ankalaev was able to do to him. The first fight, everyone thought was a fluke. The second fight, Magomed made sure there were no more doubters. He is the better man. Now, Ian Cutelaba was coming up with a lot of hype into that fight. There was a lot of negativity. We even going up to the face-offs, there was a little bit of shoving back and forth. Even in the first fight, they got into each other's faces and started shoving before the first bell even rung, which was crazy to see. So I think Ian Cutelaba has to kind of make a statement here. He kind of came in with his guns blazing last time, and the fight didn't go his way. Dustin Jacoby is coming off of the Contender Series. He's had 2 fights in the UFC since. He's not looking too bad himself. Who do you have for this one?
Dustin Jacoby on a winning streak. As you said, Ian Cutelaba is currently on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Magomed Ankalaev the first time, which, as you said, was a fluke. Was kind of a fluke, kind of wasn't. It was an early referee stoppage from what Ian Cutelaba thought, and from the fans' view, it kind of looked like that. So they ran it back, and Magomed Ankalaev was able to knock Ian Cutelaba out. So Ian Cutelaba has to put on a decent performance. He has to make a statement, as you said. We know what type of potential he has, but at times he could be a little bit sloppy, a little bit careless and reckless. So Jocko, he's a new fighter, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm probably gonna have to go with Jocko.
Same. I think I'm going to agree with you there. I think it's going to depend on Ian Couture. We know he has that fierceness, that aggressiveness, but I think it needs to come down to whether or not he can channel that aggressive energy where he needs to.
I mean, I misspoke. I meant to say I'm going with Dustin Jacoby, not Jotko. Jotko was a fight prior to that.
So for the co-main event, this is an exciting one. We have Giga Chikadze taking on Cub Swanson. Another, I think, an amazing fight on paper. Giga Chikadze is an amazing, amazing kickboxer. Cub Swanson is just an OG in the game. He's been in WEC, UFC. I mean, this guy has pretty much done it all, I think, except for hold a championship. Legend in the game. Cub Swanson's pretty well versed. I would say he's probably a little bit better of a striker than he is on the ground. Giga Chikadze is an amazing, amazing kickboxer. He's very young, and he's been climbing up this division fast. I feel like he's been on a few undercards, so many people may not know exactly who he is, but I know you and I have watched his last few fights, and we've been nothing but impressed with what we've seen.
Yeah, he's a very impressive fighter, as you said. His striking is some of the best in the UFC, I would have to say. Cub Swanson is a challenge for him. Cub Swanson is currently on a 2-fight winning streak. He won a Gracie, and his last fight, I believe he won via knockout. But Giga Chikadze, he's predominantly a striker, as you said. So he believes that Cub Swanson, he's going to try to wrestle the entire time, but he feels confident in his own wrestling. And yeah, he said he's going to welcome the wrestling from Cub.
I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Giga on this one. Cub Swanson, he's in the latter half of his career. He's not looking too great. He is on a 2-fight winning streak, but he has seen some adversity recently. He did have an injury to his knee, I believe, in a submission tournament a couple of years ago. So, his joints could be kind of going. He is up there in age. He's not the old Cub Swanson. Giga Chikadze, though, I feel like he's that rising star. So I think this is a classic UFC move where they kind of put the OG name against the rising star to kind of make the way up for them.
Yeah, so if Giga is able to win this fight, he's obviously going to make a name for himself. This is probably the biggest name he's fought thus far. So, as you said, the UFC is making this fight as a stepping stone. So if he beats Cub Swanson, then he's like the real deal. And I believe that he has the tools to do so. I feel like his takedown defense is good enough, and his striking is just phenomenal. So I'm predicting either a TKO or a KO stoppage.
I agree with you there. So, John, for the main event of the evening, we have Dominick Reyes making his return against Jiri Prochazka. What do you think is going to happen in this fight?
Fight between two of the best in the world. Dominick Reyes coming off 2 losses. First to Jon Jones, which was very controversial. A lot of people, a lot of big analysts like Ariel Helwani, Brett Okamoto, they think that Jon Jones lost that fight. So after that, Dominick Reyes went to fight Jan Blachowicz, and we know what happened in that fight. He got knocked out by the Polish Power. So he's fighting a very tough opponent, Jiri Prochazka. Current record 27-3-1, former Rising champion. He's on a huge winning streak. I believe it's somewhere close to 11 fights right now. So this is going to be a tough test for Reyes. We don't know how the mental is going to play a role. He is coming off a knockout loss, which was pretty brutal. So we don't know how that's going to affect him. And this is going to be a really tough test for him.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, Reyes is coming off of 2 losses, one to Jon Jones and one to Jan Blachowicz. I think the big difference is, coming off the loss to Jon Jones, Reyes thought he won. So he still had that ego and still had that positive mindset. But his last fight, he got knocked out, and he got knocked out bad. So I think the big question here is, are we going to see a difference in confidence? For example, what we saw with Francis after the first Stipe fight, Stipe didn't get knocked out, but Stipe was a lot more gun shy and a lot more careful with his shots for the next fight. I hope we don't see that. But Jiri Prochazka has a lot of big names under his resume. He beat Vadim Nemkov, who's the Bellator champion right now. He has a win over CB Dalloway, a win over Volkan Ozdemir. Guy has a pretty solid resume himself, and I feel like he's one of those guys that's going a bit under the radar as well. Guy's a knockout artist. He has 24 wins by knockout. I mean, that's just fucking phenomenal.
I feel like a lot to do with that is why he's going under radars, because he doesn't have the personality. You know, he's not like a Jorge Masvidal, or he's not like a Israel Adesanya. He's a phenomenal fighter, but fans don't know him yet because I feel like he's not vocal enough, you know?
Hey, I mean, if he makes a statement this weekend, I mean, that could be the game changer for his career. Dominick Reyes has a big following, especially with that controversial loss against Jon Jones. So, all the eyes are going to be watching to see if Reyes was the real deal, or if Jon Jones fight was some kind of fluke or something. So I think all eyes are going to be on the main event this weekend. Could set a lot of precedent for the light heavyweight division going forward.
Yeah, and with the win in this fight, I believe that's a ticket to the title.
Guys, this Saturday, May 1st, the main card is going to be at 10 p.m. and the prelims will be at 7 p.m. on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus. This is going to be an exciting one, guys. You're going to want to catch it. Also, if you need some more MMA to watch this weekend, one is going to be on TNT again on April 28th. We have PFL on April 29th, and bare knuckle boxing is going to be on April 30th. So another weekend packed of events. Hope you guys can find something to watch. If you need a calendar of the events, check out InsideTheClinch.com. We have our MMA calendar on there. You can find all the list of upcoming events across different organizations. And feel free to check out the rest of the resources we have on our website as well. Okay, guys, thank you again for listening to round 23 of Inside the Clinch. As always, don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels. On Instagram, we are Inside the Clinch MMA. On Twitter, we are ITC MMA Podcast. Facebook and YouTube, we are Inside the Clinch MMA Podcast. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a review. Share our page.
Drop it all in the DMs and tell us how you're liking the show.
Thank you, guys. Catch you next week.